Hi, and welcome to the Who Are They podcast. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that sometimes we reference different photos and videos, and those are all available on our Instagram at WH0_ARE_THEY_. So go there for updates about our show and reminders of when our episode drops.
From our Instagram, you can get to any of our other social medias or places to listen to the podcast. If you're listening, go ahead and rate and review, or if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Who Are They podcast. We are here for number 5.
Woo!
I looked at Bailey before we started, and I was like, okay, we're on podcast number 4. Great. And I was like, wait a minute. We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, we have. 5 weeks.
It's wild.
Well, I actually had to go to school this week. So I have been working.
Sorry, I just took a drink of my coffee and almost choked when you said that.
Well, at least I went to school most of the week. We still had Monday off, which was super silly because Monday ended up being like 40 degrees and most of the snow melted. We have no snow anymore. So we had like over a week off, and now our snow's gone and it's 60 degrees.
I just think that is so funny.
It is.
So funny.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. It was a good break, but also that first day back was a 2-hour delay. So our first day back was not even a whole day. They were still worried about some of the side roads, which some of the side roads were pretty bad, like because they're like 90-degree turns and there were sheets of ice. So they're like, we'll do a 2-hour delay on the first day back. And that day I was tired at the end, but also it was 2 hours shorter. So it was okay. But that Wednesday, our first full day back, I was so tired. I was like emotional.
Okay,
like at
but
the end of
isn't
the
that
day.
so real? Tell me if you're like this. When you get so exhausted, are you the type of person that can't stop crying? Because I am.
Yes, because I was at school all day, and Wednesday's my really long day because I live like 30 minutes from my school, and my church is right by my school, and I had a Bible study on Wednesday night, so I didn't go home after school.
Those days are the worst.
Yeah, and I just hung out at school. I was like, this is the one day I'm going to stay late. I'm going to get all my work done for the week because I have to be here anyways. But after Bible study, which ended at 8, so I had been at school from like 8 to 8, or out of my house, I got in my car and I started just crying. And I was like, what am I crying about? And I was like sobbing.
And there was no reason, was there?
There was not really a reason at all. Like, I kept making up little reasons. And then I was like, wait a second. There's no reason. I was like, I think I need to go to bed. And so I did.
That is funny.
And then I must have been really tired after this whole week because last night I think I fell asleep at like 7 p.m. and I crashed.
My
It was like one of those sleeps where you wake up like every half an hour and you look around, but it feels like concrete's on your body and there's no way you're going to move. And I would like look up and I'd look around and then I'd just go back to bed. So I was tired, which is so funny because Thursday and Friday, I didn't do a lot of teaching because Thursday the kids took a test.
Oh.
Friday, they were doing some silent work. In the afternoon, I had meetings, so I had a sub in my classroom, so I was just sitting through meetings. But it took me out.
Yeah.
But it was a good week. Yeah, I started a new Bible study at church over Ephesians. So that's really fun.
Is it like, are you filling out a book for it?
Yeah.
Or are you just like showing up? Is it going along with like what is it?
We're filling out a book. This is the third one I've done with my church, but this book that we're doing this time is not nearly as much like filling out as last time. There's like 3 homework days, and some of it's like coloring.
Oh, really?
So it's actually quite delightful because sometimes I've been to other studies where there's like 5 days of studies and they're like an hour a piece, and I was awful at getting them done. But this one has like 3 days that you can spread out and like be chill with it.
Wait, did you say there's only 3 days?
Yeah, there's like 3 days of homework.
I love that.
I love it too. And when I got in there were so many other teachers from my school that started going to
In
this.
your Bible study?
Yeah, well, and it's all the older women, but I love it.
Of
And
course.
So one of them is a first grade teacher, and she goes to our church. She just
Okay.
goes to a different service, so I didn't know that for a long time. But she's recruited like all of the ladies she works with, and are like one of the teachers that works in the library. And so there were like 7 teachers from our school there.
That's so
And
cool, actually.
It was really cool. None of them are in my group, but like
Okay.
this is all set up to where like we watch a video all together and then we
Yeah.
split off into groups. So I got to
Okay.
sit with them, and I was like, that was just so fun, because the last 2 that I've gone to, like I was pretty new to the church and I felt like I didn't really know anyone.
Yeah.
And now I'm like working with all these ladies, and I know people when I show up, and
I like
like
that.
people know me, and so it's
Yeah.
been really exciting. It takes a while, but you get there.
Right. I like that.
That was my week. How was yours?
My week, I similar in the sense of like actually not really similar at all. I was just thinking harder about it. Okay, we had a snow day this week too.
Ooh.
We actually, this is why it was similar. We had the snow day, and then we also had a 2-hour delay the next day.
Oh.
And my teacher friends and like people I work with told me that like we haven't had a 2-hour delay in my district for like years and years and years.
Seriously?
Seriously, like I mean years. And at this point in the year, I'm pretty sure we've had more snow days than we've had for a few years too, because we have a new superintendent this year. Or
Oh.
she's like an interim superintendent, but
And I would be nervous too, especially my first year of like causing any issues or like any
I
accidents
know.
happening
So I think
on snow
she's
days.
just trying to be really safe about everything,
That's
which
good.
I love.
Yeah, it's fun for you
Um,
guys.
I know. But and I brought this up with my students and I was talking to them about it, but why do shorter weeks feel way longer?
Oh, they do.
They feel so much longer.
I don't know if
It's
it's like
weird.
just because something is out of the ordinary.
I
but
know.
They are forever.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird. Anyways,
Yeah.
that
and the
was
kids have
wonderful.
odd energy about them
Yeah,
on a short
mine are
week.
pretty
And
good.
I think that's part of it.
I've got some great students this year that are just like, they're not really, okay, all kids are wild. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I was
My
going to say
kids-
they're not wild. They are. They so are.
My kids forgot how to act this week.
Oh, those are the worst weeks.
Well, it was because we had Christmas break, which was like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we were back for like a week, maybe a week and a half.
And then you were gone again.
And we had another week off. So
Right.
they forgot how to do school.
Yeah. Anyways, had my snow day. But within my snow day, basically what I've been spending all my free time doing is reading. I am in the reading kick of my life. Like,
Ooh,
I'm not
good.
kidding. I called my sister last night, and she lives like a few hours away, and she is a big reader. Like, she has tons of books, loves it, is always reading something, and she's been like that for a really long time. So I called her and I was like, I just want you to know that I am in the reading kick of my life. Like, I am tracking every book I read. I've read 6 books so far in 2024.
Wow.
I know. Thank you.
What do you track them on?
Goodreads. Except I
Okay.
don't really let people be my friends because I feel judged by that.
Oh, okay. My boyfriend he doesn't like Goodreads anymore. He used to track
Oh.
all of his books on Goodreads, and he didn't like the format of it. So he
What does
uses
he
this
use?
new app.
What's it
I'll
called?
have to ask him. I forget, but he like tracks the time he reads on it. So he'll be like,
okay,
he starts
I
at
think
this time,
I've heard of that. And
and he loves this app.
I don't really like Goodreads, the setup either. So you'll have to ask him and tell me.
I will. Yeah, he tracks the time and everything, and it'll be like, it took you this long to read this book and all this stuff.
Oh. Well, I'm the type of person that just loves seeing progress.
Mm.
Okay? Like, I love to see my progress on something. So I love seeing, like, on my Kindle, I read on my Kindle all the time, and it tells me the percentage the way I'm through the book. Or when I'm on Goodreads, it'll tell me how many books I've read this year so far. And the series I'm in right now, I am just loving. I cannot stop reading it, and it is just wonderful.
What's it called?
It's called, I think the series is called like The Reckoners. It's by Brandon Sanderson, but the first book is called Steelheart.
Oh,
And
you were
I
telling
think
me about that.
Yeah, I did tell you about them. But I'm on the third one, and I'm like 50% of the way through, and I can't wait to finish.
Ooh, exciting.
And then otherwise this week, my brothers are 7th and 8th grade, go to the school that I teach at, and the boys started their basketball season this past week. So
Oh, nice.
every single Monday, Wednesday, we've got basketball games. And I don't have to go to all of them, but I like watching them play. So that's fun. And then I do this thing with my students, which I love. Okay, I'm going to tell you about this. I don't know if I've told you about this before.
Okay.
So last year, first year of teaching, I started taking pictures. Okay. And when I say that, I mean like with a class, I would tell my class, hey, let's take a picture together. I set my camera up. We all take a picture. And like, you're not really allowed to take pictures and like put them anywhere of kids, right? Like we've got tons of kids in our district that you aren't allowed to take photos of, or like,
Right.
no, there's no release clause or whatever it's called. But I tell the kids, I'm not putting this anywhere. I'm not doing anything with this. You don't have to be in the photo if you don't want to, but we want you to. And I then print the photos, I laminate them, and I hang them on my wall.
Oh, that's sweet.
And so I did it with every single class last year, and I only did at the end of last year. But my students this year have been hounding me over and over and over. When are you going to put our pictures up? When are you going to put our pictures up? Because we took our pictures right before Christmas, and then I'm just lazy and didn't print them. And I didn't have laminating sheets, and every time I went to the store, I forgot to get them. But I finally put them up yesterday, and I had a couple kids, and I took them on a secret mission, and we did printing and laminating and
Oh,
all that together, and it was really fun, and they loved it.
were they so excited?
They were so excited. And I still get a bunch of my 8th graders that come back, and they come literally to look at the photos.
That's really cute. I like
know.
that idea.
I know.
I'm not allowed to take pictures of my students at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like we have, I think they're called like a good news ambassador, probably a wrong name, but it's like one person designated in the school that's allowed to take photos.
Oh.
Just because we're at like 1,000 kids almost. So I think it's just liability wise for this
Right.
whole district. They're like, well, you just can't take photos of the kids.
Interesting.
And also, I think our district has a lot of kids whose parents are famous.
Oh.
So I think
Well,
they
that
had to
would do
make-
it.
I think they had to make that blanket statement.
Yeah, I feel like you'd have to if that was the case.
Yeah.
Anyways, let me jump us into our history. Unless you have
Okay.
anything else to throw in there.
I have one more story
okay.
I remembered about class this week. Being back with the kids, I forgot how funny they are. Anyways.
Me too. I love. Oh wait, I've got a story too. Anyways. keep
Okay,
going.
perfect. This little girl, I love her. Sweetest little thing. She comes up to my desk with this thing of sticky notes, and she goes, I found these notes and they're really inappropriate. And I was like, "No." I said,
so excited. What did they say?
I said, where did you find it? She goes, in the trash can.
Why
I said, did you take these out of the trash? And she goes, yeah. And I was like, well, thank you. I'll read them. And I read them, and it's like this whole packet of sticky notes, but there's only something written on the first 2 of them. So I was
Oh.
like, score. I got a brand new pack of sticky notes.
Right.
Anyways, the first one said, do you want to be girlfriend, boyfriend?
Oh, that's
And
so
then you-
inappropriate.
And you flip it over to the back one, and it goes, no, not really. And I wish, like, it had come out of a desk instead of the trash can, because then I would have known who wrote it.
Right.
Like, it would have to be one of 2 people, because I have 2 blocks. So only 2 kids sit in that chair for the day. And later, the little girl walks up to me, and she goes, did you read the note? And I was like, yeah, I did. And she's like, do you know who wrote it? I was like, no. I said, you took it out of the trash can. I said, I don't know who wrote it. And she's like, oh. But
First of all,
so inappropriate.
and the fact that this girl was like looking in the trash can hard enough to pull something out and like to read what was written on that is just hilarious to me. Like she had to go out of her way to do that.
I love it because it gives me something to read. But also this week, so the play we're doing is Beauty and the Beast.
Oh.
So that's going to
love
be
that
really
movie.
cute. And I'm excited to see it. And I think like this school, I saw pictures of last year's production and they're like better than my high school's productions were,
Oh.
like budget wise, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see Beauty and the Beast. Anyways, we didn't have outdoor recess until Friday because it was raining all week
Mhm.
long. But we're outside and I'm sitting on the bench watching the kids, and these girls walk in front of me and they go, "Do you want to see our routine for Beauty and the Beast?" And I said, "Absolutely." And they sang that one part of the song where, you know, those girls are singing about Gaston and they're like,
Yes,
"Look
yes.
there." Like, "Oh, he's so cute." They like
Yeah.
did that and the whole routine for me. And I was like, that was so good. And I loved every part of seeing their little routine. And I said, "Are all of you guys in the play?" And they're like, "No, only 3 of us are. We taught it to the rest of them at recess." So they're all just out here doing that dance. And
That's funny.
I love the amount of times these kids sing to me
really.
is so off. Like all the time, a little girl will walk up to my desk and she'll be like, at the end of the day, because we have like 30 minutes where they hang out in my classroom until they're called to leave.
Yeah.
So they'll come up to my desk and they'll be like, "Can I sing a song I wrote for you?"
Oh wow.
And they'll just stand like next to me and they'll
I-
sing to me.
I think that's definitely a show of the difference in age we teach. 7th graders
Oh,
would
absolutely.
never, ever.
5th graders though, but it's like, and they'll like look at me or they'll like look down at their paper while they sing, and I have no idea where to look. Because these girls are like going all out singing for me.
They
and I'm
trust
just
you
like,
and love you.
They do, and that is so cute. And I was like, and I never want to kill a dream. So
You
I was like,
should
I
feel
don't want them.
flattered.
I do, but I'm like, I don't want them to look at me and be like, "Why was she making that face while I was singing?"
Yeah, I know.
So I was like, do I look at them? Do I look forward? I always tell them they did a good job. Some of them are actually really good.
Wow.
Yes. But
That's
anyways,
funny.
lots of singing and lots of inappropriate notes.
My story isn't really that interesting. I've got this boy that I think is hilarious, and I have him twice a day.
I've got one of those.
Okay. I've got him twice a day because I teach a math seminar course, and so it's like helping students get better at math. And anyways, he pops in my room at the end of the day. This was after our snow day, or no, this was the day of our 2-hour delay.
Okay.
So we'd had the snow day, we had our 2-hour delay. This kid pops his head in my room after that day and goes, "Bet." And I'm like, "What?" Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, "Bet, are you going to take my bet?" And I'm like, "What is your bet? Like, what are you trying to say to me?" And he's like, "Bet we won't have school tomorrow." And I'm like, "I bet you we will." And he's like, "No, we won't. It's going to get cold and the rain is going to freeze." And I go, "No, it's going to get," and I pull up the weather on my computer and I go, "I can prove it to you. It's only going to get down to 34 degrees tonight." And he's like, "Fine. I'm going to put my fan outside and cool down the outdoors." And he just
That's
cracked
smart.
me up. And the next morning we had a whole conversation about cooling down the outdoors, or if like how you would do that. I don't even know. I'm not a science girl, but it was quite funny. And the next morning he was outside. He waits to come into the school, like outside the door by my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I just pointed and laughed at him. I'm a horrible teacher, but I mean, not really. But I just showed up.
You know what? He's into it too.
Oh,
you know?
he totally was. Like, I wouldn't do that to any kid, okay? I did this because I knew this kid would think it
Right.
was funny. But I just pointed at him and was like, like, "We're here and I won."
Oh, also, before we start the history, are we going to talk about our hate comments we got?
Oh, yeah, please. Let me pull
Our
them up.
first
My
hate comments. Abby's got them screenshotted.
Oh, I didn't screenshot. That would have been smart.
Oh, anyways, she's got them pulled up on her phone. It was one of our videos on our YouTube. We posted short. We get like no comments ever, but we got 4 comments on this, 3 or 4 on this
Here's 3.
one video.
Here's 3.
All right.
Okay, so the first one is, "Isn't she the last that dated Sam Bankman-Fried?" Fried? I don't know how you say that.
I don't know either. We didn't even know who that was.
Could you
It's
tell
some-
him, because I forgot?
Yeah, it's some guy. It's an American executive or something that came up with something for cryptocurrency and got in trouble for fraud.
Yeah.
And then we looked
apparently
up
I
his-
look like his girlfriend.
I mean, they have similar hair and they both wear glasses.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
So-
the last. So apparently our audience is male Scottish men.
I don't know.
Irishman?
Anyways, the next one in this short, I was telling a story and said when I get really excited and I'm talking fast, I say the word like all the time. So this guy wrote like, shut it. But my favorite one is the last one. I was talking about red flags in this short, and he goes, "Your face is a red flag."
I tell you?
But everything is spelled wrong. Like they didn't
Yeah.
write is, they wrote us, and they don't know how to spell your either.
The thing is, these are all things that my students would say to me.
Oh, same. And I think
You know,
it's hilarious when they
so
insult
it's
me.
funny. I'm like, okay, as a teacher, I've had parents that have said worse things to me, and I've had students that have said worse things to me.
Same.
So these are hilarious.
I know. It's like my job is getting picked on. So this isn't much worse. It means we've made it. We finally made it.
We have haters. But our audience is like 60% male, so we've got to switch that over.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're into it.
Me neither. Not by that. All right. I am going to move us on to our history.
Okay, I'm excited.
Our history this week, and now, of course, I have lost when it was from. Oh, it's from 2019.
Oh,
Okay.
good year.
So 2019, and I'm trying to think of what to say about it before I play it, but I'm not sure there's much to say. So let me pull it up, and we'll go from there. Oh, it's over here. Yes, Rachel. Yes, Rachel. Bailey.
Oh my gosh.
Go, Sarah. Woo. Oh. Bailey. What? Let's go, Sarah.
You're right!
Oh my gosh.
This goes on for a little while longer. But
Yeah, I
I'm
think
gonna
we-
stop it there.
Seen the gist of this.
Explain
Golly.
it before you jump into your thoughts. So that-
Okay, so
people-
in this video is when we were in college, we would go to winter retreats, and the winter retreats would be at this camp called Lake Ann Camp, right? That's where we were.
I think so.
Yeah, Lake Ann Camp, and they had this game called Broom Ball. But as you can see here, there are no brooms to be seen. In Broom Ball, you would hit the ball with a broom while you're walking on ice. It's a great winter game to play when you're from the north. You don't need skates. All you need is brooms and a ball. Anyways, we must have wanted too many people to play. So we turned it into ice soccer. So it is this tiny arena. What is it the size of? It's smaller than a
Oh.
basketball court.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. It's not very big. There's 2 goals, one on each side. And there's probably 30 people on this ice trying to kick the ball into one of the goals. And we're all slipping because we don't have ice skates on, and we're running on ice. I am there. It looks like really just standing off to the side.
I was in there too. There's another video of this where Liz, the girl whose voice you hear, calls out to me and I wave at the camera and everything, but I just thought you were funnier.
Yes. Well, there's also a lot the guys that are playing in the middle when they go to hit the ball are getting into it, and they're almost slipping. You see one point where one guy has to get caught by the guy behind him.
Yeah.
They're kicking this everywhere. It would get pretty intense.
Yeah.
So I feel like I wanted to play, but I stayed mostly off to the side, and I'd kick it if it came to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this was a really good time.
We played it for multiple years in a row.
Yes. Also, what is the hat I am wearing?
I don't know. You should see
Why
my
is it-
hat too. It's bright blue.
I have this long stocking cap on type thing that's hanging past my shoulders.
Yeah, I don't know. Mine is.
I thought it
gross,
was cute
too.
at the time.
What was I gonna say about this? Oh, I was gonna say Liz is a real hype woman. At
Oh,
the
yeah.
time of this, we were really into our vlogging era. So,
Oh,
like, the
yes.
house we lived with, we were vlogging everything. And there's another one of these videos where Liz is behind the camera as well. And she's, like, talking to people that are off to the side and, like, waving at one of the guys that had lived in the house. And then, like, she's just cheering for people the whole time. And it's
Oh, yeah.
incredible. And you're like, wow, she is hyping everybody up. And it's
She did.
hilarious to listen to. It's great.
It was, yeah. This was one of my favorite things that we would do at camp, at
Me
least this
too.
year.
Me too.
Because it was like this. We also had, like, you could tube down a hill,
Mm-hmm.
and tubing down a hill was really fun. But, man, ice soccer, the games we made up were the best.
Hey guys, so I had to create a little insert here because as I was editing, I realized that we lost some footage. So to catch you up on what you missed, basically we just introed our topic where we share that this week we're talking about our first years of teaching and how they were different and similar. And so Bailey began this podcast talking about how when she graduated and got her first job, she stayed in our college town. And how that was really different for her because she was the only one with a full-time job out of our friends, and she was living amongst a bunch of college students, and that was difficult because they were all on such different timetable. And so we kind of go into that a little bit more as you'll jump back in, so hopefully it's not too confusing jumping into our topic after we've already started it, but hopefully you enjoy. I think it's just a really different lifestyle. Like even when I my sisters who are in college or like I'm hanging out with them, they just have more, I don't know, free time, because in college I feel like my sisters are still really, really busy.
Right.
But it's just a very different flow of life, and they're up a lot later. They can wake up a lot later. Like I have a very, very set routine now, and I don't know if you feel the same way about like having a job, but
Right. And that was like how I felt because I would get up really early. I would be at work all day, and then I would get home. And like that's a lot of the time when classes would be ending for everyone that was still in school. But I was so tired that I was like, I cannot hang out late. Like if I do something, it needs to be right now before I just lay down.
right.
And there were so many times where I would like fall asleep on my couch at like 6 p.m. that first year.
And college stuff, like fun stuff, wouldn't start until like 7, 8, even 9 o'clock at night sometimes.
Right. And then like a lot of times in college, you don't have Friday classes. So like
Right.
Thursday nights, people are hanging out. And then they don't have to get up Friday morning, but it's like I had a job and I did. And so
Yeah.
it's like very quickly you just like are in a different like frame of mind. You have like the schedule you need to stick to. And I remember it felt really isolating just because like all of my friends were still in college that were in that area. It's like even my friends like that were going to grad school, like they were still in college. So
Yeah.
there was
And I didn't really understand where you were at that point either. I think
Yeah,
just
'cause
being in
it's-
college, like I'm living my life, you're living yours, and I didn't have a concept for what that felt like yet.
Right. And until you like get out there, you don't understand like the difference between college and
Right.
working your first full-time job. And
Yeah.
it is exhausting.
Oh, it's so exhausting. Last year was my first year, and I ended up moving home after college. So I moved in with my parents for the summer. And then when I started working, I lived with my grandparents because I've got 2 middle school brothers, and I didn't want to be going to work with middle schoolers all day and then come home to middle schoolers. And plus, they bring their friends over. And I knew they'd be bringing my students over, and I didn't want to live in the same place that my students were going to come hang out.
Right. Yeah, because that would be weird for them and weird for you.
I
and
know,
just
I know.
Not the best situation.
And sometimes I go over there, and some of my students are over there, but it's just different that I'm
that's
not living
way
there.
different. They can't like
know.
walk past your bedroom or something
Yeah,
in that. feels
exactly.
weird.
So,
Yeah. But I
and-
lived by myself
yeah.
that first year too, which also wasn't helpful because it's like I would go and I'd be tired and I'd be with kids all day, and then I would come home and be by myself,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't talk to anyone.
I think we're jumping into like how we felt like with friends and stuff that first year of college.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me with friends, living with my grandparents was great because I had people to come home to, which is different than what you experienced. And I loved that because my grandma and I watched like a show. I had her watching One Tree Hill with me. last year. And I'm telling you, she told me that's like the best show ever and she loved it. Okay. But we would watch an episode like every single night and that was so fun. But it was weird and I think I felt very weird about it because as much as I loved it, there was just an aspect of my life missing in the fact that I don't have friends in my hometown. Like I don't have people my age. And so and I didn't make a concerted effort to talk to my friends last year.
Right. Yeah. You're so busy and that extra effort just is like one more thing.
Yeah. And so I think like I felt sad because I worked with middle schoolers all day and then I came home to my grandparents at night and I was just missing this middle age group of people that I needed to be happy and be able to relate to people.
Right. And I would, like that first year, like during the week, I would not see a lot of other people my age.
Yeah.
There was one girl that I worked with that I would talk to sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so that was fun. We were pretty, like our classrooms were pretty close together. But she also, like towards the end of the year, we started getting closer and started hanging out more. But she was also a first year teacher. So both of us were like just trying to keep our heads above the water. And so it took us a while to even be like, hey, let's talk, let's hang out, let's do this stuff after school because we were both like, what do I do next? What do I do next?
Right. Well, I had a teacher that worked across the hall from me too that's the same age as me, but she is married.
Mm-hmm. And this girl was married too.
First year, she told me she was pregnant. And so I think, and this is what, we've talked about this before, but this is what I say all the time. Is I think your first year out of college, but specifically like your mid-20s, are the most absolutely awkward period of life. and I don't mean that by like middle school is your most awkward like looking period of life generally. You know what I mean? But like this 20s point in life is like everybody is at such a different stage. Like we're the same age. I'm single, living with my grandparents. You are living in Nashville with a friend, have a boyfriend. My coworker, our age, is married, has a baby that's like 6 months old. Like, it's just like all of us are like in our jobs now, but are at such different points. So wherever you are, it feels like you're in the wrong place.
Yes. Yeah, because this girl too that we became friends eventually, she got married at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
So she had other responsibilities outside of home, right? She's got a husband and she's got to spend time with him and all this stuff. And we lived 30 minutes away because she lived by the school. And I would have to drive 30 minutes home. So even just like after I go home, I'm not hanging out with anyone. But also at the beginning of the school year, I was good about hanging out with people on the weekends. But none of my friends that were out of school lived near me. So like the people that were experiencing the same thing as me, they didn't live near me. And I was also going through a breakup at the beginning of this school year. So I was like dealing with those emotions and I was tired from that. And then I was starting a full-time job and I was tired. So on the weekends, I would drive to Grace's house, and Grace lived about 45 minutes away, and we would do something and we would have fun. And there was a lot of times when we'd fly to Texas to go visit my brother. And
because she was graduated and working and had a job about an hour away.
And so that was fun. Like my first half of the year, I would do, and it was almost like I was keeping myself busy on the weekends because like one, you don't want to think about school because that's all you think about all week long. So I would like go a different place every weekend. And so that was really fun, but it felt almost like I was living for the weekend.
Yeah. You had to have something fun. And I think I've learned that from last year is I've got to give myself something fun and something to look forward to every week. And I think last year I became a huge soccer fan. Like I love watching soccer. And that's what I looked forward to every single week last week is waking up on Saturday mornings, having my coffee and just laying on my couch and watching soccer for hours. And that sounds so lame, but I loved it. And that's like what I looked forward to. And I think if you don't have something like that, your first job of working, regardless of whether you're in teaching or if you're not keeping up with your friends, like your first year of working, life just gets so hard so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It gets lonely.
Yeah.
Yes. And you feel isolated. I think
Well,
that
and
was the biggest thing for
I
me.
think teaching is a whole nother beast in and of itself. And I probably think that because that's my profession. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But talking to even my friend Lori, who's an engineer, it's like it just takes everybody a long time to get settled in your job. And I
Yeah.
think no matter what your job is, it's going to take everybody about a year to feel comfortable in what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in teaching too, it's like you're not used to that level of exhaustion beforehand.
Oh, my word.
Because you are coming from school where you have so much extra time. Yeah, you pre-student taught, but you didn't have all the responsibilities of that job. Like pre-student teaching or student teaching is tiring, but you get to the workforce. And I think I saw this one thing. I can't remember the stat now, but it was like the amount of questions or like decisions that a teacher has to make throughout the day is like thousands. And it's because like every little second a kid is asking you something, or maybe your lesson doesn't go to plan, so you've got to switch it up. And it's like, I was trying to explain this to someone the other day, and I was like, you know how like at your job you might have to give a presentation, but you have
I do this all the time.
Yeah,
I
was
this
like,
exact thing. Yeah,
you have weeks at work to prepare for your presentation.
Right.
I give a 5-hour presentation every day.
Me too.
And have 45 minutes a day to plan.
Yeah.
And I said, the people I'm presenting to don't want to be there.
And they don't know how to act. They don't know how to act.
So it's like I'm in the middle of my presentation and I have to go, sit down. I have to say, stop passing a note. Stop
Turn
doing
around.
this. Stop
Look at me.
talking. And I'm teaching them how to, and then I have to get them to master a skill.
Yeah.
And I go, so yeah, maybe give me an extra hour to plan.
I know. I'm like, literally, if you're prepping a meeting for your corporate job or whatever, I don't even know what corporate jobs look like.
You have
Never will.
weeks.
I don't get it. You've got a while, but like also, you're talking to people who know how to do their job, who know how to be humans, who know how to be an adult. And you're not generally like, and Grant, I've never sat through one of these meetings. I don't know. But at least when I picture them, you're not like teaching them a new skill they have to learn.
Right.
You're like filling them in on your project or what you're doing or like,
And your people are getting paid to be there, so they're trying to do a good job.
yeah, ours don't care.
They do not care. And they talk back.
Yeah. They tell you you're ugly. I mean, not mine.
They'll be like, why are you wearing that today?
Yeah.
Oh, where's your boyfriend?
yeah. I'm like, I don't have one.
Are you married? No. Why not?
Are you ever going to get married?
Can I meet your kids someday?
Can I come to your wedding? It's like, oh my gosh.
Like constant interruptions while I'm trying to give my presentation for my job.
Constant. And it's like one time I had to be like, we can't have exorcisms in here. Like, what are you doing? And like they were trying to have an exorcism.
In the middle of your class.
Yeah. And I'm like, what are you doing?
I look up and I'll see a kid in the back of the class doing a dance.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, buddy, what are you doing?
I just get kids that think they can make any decision they want to, so they're like in every corner of my room all the time. And I'm like, where is your chair? Not over there. Or I'll be like, I go, go sit down. And they'll literally do a wall sit. And I'll be like, that is not your seat.
Also, I consider myself a part-time contractor at my job because I'll be in the middle of my lesson or presentation, as you will. And the kids love to hold onto the desks, but they rock them. So these desks constantly, they wiggle the screws loose. And like in the middle of a lesson, a desk will collapse. And so I'm like still teaching while on the floor, screwing these screws back into a desk. And I go, this wouldn't happen at a corporate job. I said, adults know how to sit in a chair.
I know. And so I think that's what makes the job so exhausting is you're dealing with all those things at the same time. And I think for me, and I don't know if this is true for you, but I have a really hard time sleeping, especially when it comes to the beginning of the year or when we go back to school after breaks or at the end of the year.
Well, I can tell you, I sleep like a baby every single night.
Oh.
Since I've started teaching.
Are you serious?
I like hit the pillow, I'm sleeping.
Wow. I think I'm exhausted.
I don't relate to that one.
Well, My problem is I run scenarios or I'll be
Oh.
running my lesson in my head, or I'll be running what happened that day, or I'll be running all these things. And that's what makes it so hard. And I think specifically my first year, that was so hard because even before school started, I couldn't sleep for weeks because I'm just like, I mean, I would sleep, don't get me wrong, but it would take me forever to
Right.
fall asleep because I'm sitting there running, okay, what are the things I need to tell them? What are the routines I'm going to try to teach them? How do I want to act in my classroom? And when you're a first year, it's like teaching, I think, is special too because it's while you have people in charge of you, it's really your room and you get to decide how it's run. You get to decide the rules that you make, the procedures that you're going to have, how to set it up, what your classroom management is going to be like. And it's like your baby. Like you can do with it whatever you want.
Right. And your first year, you're like not sure. Like I remember the thing I was most nervous about starting the school year was I wasn't nervous about teaching the lessons so much. I was
Neither
like
was I.
wanted to do a good job, but I was like, that is concrete and I know I have to teach fractions this way.
Yeah.
Or I have to like do a raise or
Yeah.
something. I remember I was nervous about the first few days teaching routines to my students
Me too.
because I didn't know how I was going to fill an entire day of teaching routines. I
Yep.
wanted to teach them properly because if I didn't teach routines properly, the rest of my year was going to go out the window.
That happened.
And
to
I
me.
was like, and I was so nervous about like, me too, though. My first year was crazy.
Mine too.
And I was like, I like these first few days have to go well and I have to use my time wisely. And then once I get into the lessons, my day is planned out
Right.
and it gets
And
almost easier. But
let
when
me
I have
interrupt you
any
and say
days,
this.
okay.
I think that every first year teacher screws up classroom management. And
Oh,
I
absolutely.
just think it's a given that you're not going to get it and you're not going to do it right and you're going to learn as you go. And people always tell you, and you hear in college, don't change up the way you classroom manage in the middle, blah, 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 because you'll confuse the kids. Freaking do what you want the first year of that
I
you're
s-
teaching.
Still do that. Like, okay, so there's things where I'm like, okay, I have to wait till next year to do that differently because it's like
Yeah.
something I set up at the beginning of the year. But they're like classroom management, I'll tell you right now, you might have to change it every month.
I know,
Especially
yeah.
if you're working with elementary students. Like, if something's not working, stop doing it and try something new because you never know what's going to work. Something might only work for a month or two.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to keep these kids like, so try something, like, just try something new. It's not going to hurt.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to feel like you failed.
Yeah. Also, one of the best pieces of advice for like classroom management, because there's not a lot teachers can do anymore. Like,
Yeah.
in terms of like punishment or like reprimanding kids for like being rude, there's not a lot of like our hands are pretty tied. But my teacher, my first year, taught me that make the kids repeat things over and over again. So like, if it's a routine and they're not doing it correctly, make the whole class practice it until they get it right. And then they get mad at each other and they like start listening. Like we had problems lining up, like to go in the hallway. Like either kids were taking too long or they were talking to their friends or they were putting hands on each other or they just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So I would have them line up. If like they couldn't do it, I'd say sit back down and we'd try
Right.
it again. And they would just get so like they get more frustrated at the fact that they have to repeat these routines that they start doing them correctly. And I think
Yeah.
that was the best advice I ever got. Like I still use that.
I think for me, it's different because I don't have routines like that necessarily.
Right.
Because being in middle school, like we don't do that thing. For me, it's more like the things of like how they talk to each other and how I allow them to speak in my room, you know? And so I try to model that a lot of the time. Or like I find it so funny. I love doing this to them and they think it's so annoying. But I get kids that'll be like, shut up, so and so. Or like, stop talking. And I'll be like, I'll just look at the kid and they'll know what my look means. And then I just go, I repeat the name they said, right? And I go, hey, so and so, could you please be quiet? Thank you so much. And
I
just
love getting
pretend-
that voice with my students.
I just pretend I'm like them, but like redoing it.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, sorry, or whatever. Or I make them do it again. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or I don't let them talk negatively about other teachers in my room ever. And I tell
Oh,
them,
me
if you have
neither.
a problem with another teacher and you need to tell someone about it, you can come tell me privately. But if you're going to complain about another teacher, you're not allowed to do that in my classroom. And so we have a lot of conversations about that. But it's like, honestly, if that type of stuff is going to happen, I can't stop it. I can model, though, how I want it to be done. And that's
Right.
tricky because you can't really, really control that.
No, but I like that you do that. You get kind of sarcastic and repeat it. My kids almost respond the best when you get, because my kids are at age, your kids are at an age where they understand sarcasm.
I have to be so careful, though. Mine are too
Yes.
sarcastic.
Oh, well, it's like also though, I have to remember they're children. You know,
Yeah.
when you keep that in perspective, like teaching is so much easier because you're like you're
Yep.
frustrated at them, and then you're like, this is a 10-year-old trying to learn how to be a person.
Yep. Yeah.
So a lot of times they do something and they didn't realize that was bad, and maybe they have no one telling them at home it was bad, or maybe they just forgot because they're 10 years old. And so sometimes if you like look at them and you're like, either you're like a little bit sarcastic with them, like, or you repeat something like you do to them, or you're just like, hey, was that the right way to handle that? They go, no. And then they can
Yeah.
like explain maybe what they should have done.
Right.
And a lot of times, most of them want to do well,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
the
they want
majority of
to
them.
please you. Like kids want, one, they want consistency,
Yeah.
and two, they want someone to be proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And I think the first year of teaching is hard because you just don't know how to manage everything at the same time.
right.
I think
Golly. And yeah, keep going.
we've talked and said some positive things and things we love about our job or things that we find funny, right? But I honestly think in being just like so real about it, I think the first year is horrible.
The first year is horrible.
And
And
if you're a teacher or you're going to be a teacher, you have to realize that year 1, maybe year 2 is just maybe going to be bad for you. And I don't say that saying it made me hate teaching. I think that's the message we get from a lot of people these days. I still love teaching, and even in the midst of some of the situations I went through last year, the students I had last year, figuring out what I was doing in my first year and how to do my job, I still knew I loved it,
mm-hmm.
but that it was going to take me a while to be able to enjoy being at my job every day and not just feel stressed.
Right. And my classroom too, like in the middle of trying to figure out how to be a teacher and how to teach well, I had the worst behaviors in the school in my classroom.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you too. So it's like you're trying to figure out how to teach, but then half of your job is figuring out how to manage behaviors and how to take care of that while you're teaching. And I'm almost glad that was my first year because everything else pales in comparison to that.
Same.
Like it's like my kids are like fantastic now, and it's like
Mine
almost
too.
any kids I ever have. I think like they chat a lot, and other people are like, "Oh, they're kind of rude," and I go, "Golly, compared to my first year, these are sweet little baby angels." Okay,
They're little angels. I tell people that all the time. And don't get me wrong, I think a ton of the students I had year 1, like I have over 100 students every year because of my switching hours. My first year, a bunch of my students were great kids. Like I don't want that to come across that every student I had was bad, right?
Mhm.
I had some behaviors, and I had one class where I had a bunch of boys and a bunch of kids that were all best friends and loved to rile anybody up and do everything.
okay,
And then I also just had some very, very defiant students that wouldn't listen to a thing I said about anything ever.
yes,
And that, I think, ruined my experience last year because I never wanted to go to that class.
right. And my class was kind of like that too. I had a few kids who just didn't want to be at school. Like when you learn about their home lives too, it's understandable, but
sense.
also it's very hard to go into that environment every single day. I had one little boy that every day our school would start at like 8 a.m. and there was a period of time where every time I would try to say something, he would go, ah, every time I opened my mouth. And that's not the way to start your day at 8 a.m.
What grade did you teach at that point?
3rd grade.
Okay.
So this was 3rd grade. And then I had some students who were great and they were fantastic at all hours of the day. And it's almost like I remember feeling bad for them because it felt like I was spending so much time monitoring these other students that these students that were really great were not getting my attention. So figuring out how to be fair with that is also hard.
I
And then-
cried over that multiple times.
Oh, I know. And then I would get so invested in these students too that had not good home lives. And I remember crying over that. And that was exhausting. But then I also had parents that like I worked with that one of them would like leave me mean messages in my mailbox, and she got my phone number from our staff directory because she worked with me and started texting me mean things. So the parents sometimes make it worse. So you have to learn how to be like, well, one, a lot of times if parents are emailing you, that's because there's something else going on in their life.
Yeah.
And this is you, and they're lashing out on you. So it's not usually about you. If that email comes past 7 p.m., they're not mad at you. Something else is going on in their life. Take your email off your phone so that you cannot see those mean emails after a certain, because I remember I didn't. And it would be like 8 p.m. and I'd get an email and I'd start crying.
Oh, see, I never have my email on my phone, and I guess that's not true. My email's on my phone. I can get to it if I want to.
Right.
It just gives me 0 notifications.
Which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's another tricky thing to figure out your first year teaching is like how your relationship should be with the parents in the class and with the students, and balancing that. And I can never stress enough, if you get emails or anything from parents and you need help, you need to go to like a mentor teacher or another teacher. And for that whole first year, they need to help you respond to those.
Even my second year.
Yeah, I still get help to some of them because it's like you want to, and also you want to kill them with kindness. Because if they're lashing out on you and you just like state the facts in your email back, like this is, if you know what you're doing in your classroom, you can be like, this is what we did, this is what we did, and then you're just positive about it. A lot of times parents don't email me back after that because they're like, oh, she knows what she's talking about.
Well, I'll say something else too, is I've had certain parents email me with such an emotional response to things that I never respond. And that sounds bad. That sounds like I'm not dealing with the situation. I have responded once.
Yes.
And then I forward them on every single time I get an email from certain parents. I'll just send them to my principal or my assistant principal, and then they deal with the situation. Because there's a point, and I don't think that teachers should feel bad. If there's a point in which you need help dealing with parents or students or anything like that, you have administration. And I think that's what gets difficult about our job is you feel isolated. Like you're with people all day. All day long you're with your kids, but you feel isolated because it's you. Like you're in charge, you're making all decisions, you're doing everything, and you forget that there's others outside of your room.
Right.
And I think that's what I forgot my first year. And I did have great support my first year. I loved my principal. My assistant principal helped me out. We had a learning coach at my school, and I think that differed from yours, Bailey, where you really didn't have great support your first year, and that didn't make you want to stay at that job.
No. Yeah. My first year, I had a fantastic mentor teacher, and she is what kept me going throughout the year. Like
mentor teachers she
was a saint. I love her, and even after I moved, I still kept in contact with her. But she was the one that would keep me afloat. She's like, "This is what we're going to do next week. Here's the copy. This is what you need to copy. This is the exact lesson you're going to do." And I would just stay on pace with her. And that was so very helpful. And she would tell me different tactics she tried, and she would give me different advice. But I also had to learn that I had to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because if you don't ask questions, they're not necessarily sure what to give you advice about.
Yeah.
So that was another thing where I'd be like, hey, I'm struggling with this right now. What would you do in this situation?
Yeah.
But no, my administration was not necessarily the best my first year. And so that also makes a big difference while you're teaching. Yeah. Like I remember there was a certain situation with a student where the student had to be sent home because they were such a high behavior, and the student got sent to the office because he was acting out, and then kicked one of the doors and shattered it and broke it. And so this kid was sent home for a few days. And this was a kid we had just made a behavior plan for. Also, behavior plans and all this stuff are things I didn't really know about before I went into teaching.
Yep.
There are so many different like IEPs, behavior plans you have to follow. And keeping track of those is also very hard.
Oh, my
different
word.
accommodations and like
paperwork.
what student gets what. That is also very hard. And I remember my first year, I was just kind of sitting in meetings and they would tell me like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what this means. And it was kind of me just sitting there and taking it all in.
But
while they made
this.
decisions.
You had 30 kids year one.
Yeah,
I had 120.
You have a lot more. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my word.
But anyways, back to the student. We had just made a behavior plan for him, and there were different people I was supposed to call before I called the principal because this student didn't respond well to men and our principal was a man. So usually that would escalate the situation. So this was like the first day we were trying the behavior plan. And I don't think the principal was there the day we made the plan. So I don't know if he didn't know what the plan was, if he didn't read it or something. But so I had called the multiple people that were supposed to come. Some of them were gone. And then someone else came. They took him out for a little bit. He came back. This kid was still acting up. So then I had to call the principal.
Did he
And the
get
principal
mad?
the kid?
The principal that you didn't call him first or something?
Yeah, I'll tell you that in a second.
Oh, sorry.
Anyways, kid gets carried out of the classroom by the principal because he's just like, men escalate him, right? So I was trying not to do this. It's recess time. They had indoor recess that day. I'm sitting crying at my desk. My kids are looking at me, and this kid's getting carried out of the room. Later, after school, the principal calls me to his office, and he sits me down, proceeds to tell me how awful this kid's home life was, and then told me that if I hadn't tried to be Superwoman, this kid wouldn't be at home with his grandparents that hated him. So yeah, he got mad because I didn't call him first, even though I was like this 22-year-old girl trying to follow the behavior plan. And I remember I walked back to my classroom and I sobbed, and that was the moment I said, I'm not coming back to this school.
Yeah.
So
I would.
administration, though, now my administration is the best. My coworkers are the best. I feel fully supported. And it's like anything I need, like if I'm having a problem, I send it to them, I forward it to them, and they take care of the situation. And I love it now because I feel fully supported. So also advice for your first year, if you don't feel supported by your administration, it's okay to leave that school and find a different school.
Yeah. And it's better to move at the beginning of your career than later.
Right. And I remember being like, I have to start over. But like, I am so glad that I did just to get out of that situation.
Yeah. I think I knew my principal and my administration knew I needed support from day one. And it's because I had a fight in my classroom. I'm not going to go into the story because it's long, but basically we played a game. These two kids that were very, very large problems, had very difficult home lives, were just very, very difficult students for me all year. Or as long as they were there, neither of them were there the entire year for their own situations. Anyways, they started fighting in the middle of my class, and I'm not kidding. By the grace of God, did I calm it down? Like, I thought I was going to have a fist fight in my room on day one of teaching. And I remember being so scared. And like, then later I had to go tell my principal about it. And I'm making it sound really chill right now. It was not very chill. It was very freaky and very scary.
Yeah.
I sobbed in my principal's office after school that day when I told her the whole situation. And she then filled me in on the fact that these kids had fought in the hallway, and now she understood where that had come from.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And they ended up like really fighting, and it was bad. But they knew I needed support from the get-go, and from there they had told me, you have one of the toughest classes in the building. And I was like, great. And they were like, yeah, we're so sorry. This doesn't like, I guess they didn't say this doesn't happen like most time, but I don't think that normally happens to first year teachers all the time. You and I had,
we had odd years.
Yeah, we had very odd first years. And so, but I will say, like you said earlier, I am so thankful for it in the sense
I was
that
like, if I had an easy year,
horrible, but it taught me so much.
Right, because if it had been easy at the beginning and then all of a sudden I got a bad year, I think that would be way harder to get through. I was almost like, give it to me all at once. But I have yet to have a year where they have not told me at the beginning of the year that this is the worst class in the building.
Really?
Like my student teaching, they told me that. They told me
Mine
that
too,
for
actually.
my first year. Yeah. Well, you had the same class as me, remember?
Oh, shut up. Yeah, actually.
You just had a different year.
Yeah.
We had the same mentor teacher, and she ended up her second part of it teaching the same students I had taught for my student teaching. But I was told that for them. I was told that for my first year teaching, that they were the worst class in the building and that I had the worst class. And then I was told that this year at my school. But my classroom, out of all the kids, is not awful. There are some other classrooms that are worse than mine right now, which I was like, thank goodness. But finally, next year, they said, next year's class is super sweet.
Wow.
And
That's
I'm
how
really
I feel
excited
about my
it.
kids right now. And I won't
Mhm.
say that my class last year was the hardest class in the entire school. Like, I think that there was, like, the grade I taught, the grade above them was worse.
Okay.
But my individual class of, like, the certain kids that were involved in one of them was very...
Was a tough mix.
Yes.
My group is
oh, yeah.
great. They're just chatty.
Right now.
And they... Yes. Like,
Okay.
of all of the 5th grade students, I have a pretty good class. They are just sometimes chatty and a little bit rude.
Same.
But other than that, they're not.
My 7th graders right now are, I think, and maybe it's just in comparison to what I had last year, or I guess the feelings that I had from last year, you know what I mean, from one of my classes. But I think they're little angel babies. And I mean,
Oh, yeah.
for real, I don't get me wrong, I get annoyed every other day at stuff they're doing, or they're really loud and they're not listening to me. You know what I mean? But it's like, when I have kids that actually will do what I ask them to do and aren't like so defiant, I can deal with it. I can deal with anything.
Oh, yeah.
I can do anything.
Like, if they're doing their job, so I have 2 blocks. My first block this year, I love them so much. Second block is a little bit more challenging. First block, great. But also, my first year, I remember, like, I didn't feel like I was a great teacher because I was dealing with so many things. I was like, am I teaching this well? And I remember constantly doubting that. And I think it took until my second year for me to be like, yes, I'm good at teaching these things. I know what I'm doing. I'm focusing on this. I can pull small groups. I have time for all this other little stuff
Right.
that it takes you like a year to figure out.
I think my advice and what I've done in my life is within these things, figure out some little thing you can control. Like year
Right.
1, there's so many things you can't control, so many new things you're learning, so much happening that you just need to pick 1 or 2 small things that you can work on to do well. And then even if it's the smallest thing, you feel successful somewhere.
Right.
And then going into year 2, like at the end of year 1, I sat down and I wrote a list of what are all the things I wish I had done better this year. And I picked like 2 of them to be my new goals for this year on what I wanted to do better.
Oh, nice.
And it's like, if you can come up with little tiny goals of things, or like, and I mean, when I say goal, I mean, one of my goals was just have all of your papers organized in a file folder, or have all of your papers organized in a binder and have the agenda daily so that you can flip through that next year and see, these are all the papers I need for this day. These are the copies I need to make. Like, even if it's something like that, or even if it's just, I want to get better at parent communication, or I want to get better at being more patient, and that's a hard one to measure, but like little things that could be a small goal, I think are so powerful because it makes you feel powerful in what can sometimes feel a not controllable environment.
Right. And I think a lot of times too, especially with social media being big, we see all these little Instagram teachers with the cutest classrooms and you think they have everything together and they probably don't. And they've spent an absurd amount of money on their classroom.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No.
It's just, 1, it's a waste, and 2, they've probably been teaching for a while and they've collected this stuff over time. I do think you should make your classroom a place you would like to be because you are going to be spending a lot of time there.
Yeah.
So there should be like one part of it that you really like. Maybe it's pictures from home. Maybe it's like a cute little banner you have up. Like, make it how you want it to be, but also you don't need all the little trinkets. You don't need all the little like things covering the wall. Do it over time. Like, your classroom even doesn't have to be ready on the first day of school. You just need it to be ready for that first day of school.
Right.
Like, I'm constantly adding things. I'm constantly changing things. Things are going up on my walls as the year goes on. But it's like, it doesn't have to be ready to go on that first day.
Yeah, which I would say I did not believe.
I didn't either until this year, I think.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? If this isn't ready to go, it's ready for students to sit in the seats and it's ready for me to teach. And that's all we need right now.
Let me tell you this. I decorated my classroom. I spent forever that summer before my first year doing it.
Me too.
It was exhausting. But to be honest, I will never change it until I leave.
Yes. Well, this year, so my first year, I put everything I wanted on the walls. before the summer beforehand. I didn't have a job the summer beforehand. I would
Neither did I.
I was subbing at the end of the year, and then I kind of like took that little bit off, and I was like, I'm gonna prepare my classroom, all this stuff. And it took me forever. We were in there for hours. But also, you helped me, but I had also inherited a classroom from a retired teacher. So I just had an abundance of things to go through.
Well, and I think she left more than the average person ever
and she
leaves.
left a lot. But I remember I took forever to decorate it. I wanted it to be perfect. I had like LED lights on my ceiling, which I did love those lights. But I was so worried about that too that I probably should have spent a little bit more time prepping other things instead of that. But like this year, I think before the school year started, I put borders around my whiteboards and maybe like a few other things. But everything that's on my wall now was put up after the school year started.
Yeah. It's like that's just the
And-
stuff you don't really need.
And also, you don't really know necessarily what you want on the walls until you start teaching. Because I'm like, my kids don't look at the walls.
Yeah,
So the
no.
things that are on the walls are activities for them to do. Like I had this one thing on the wall at the beginning of the year, and it was like horizontal, vertical, and it like just showed the directions that things were going because fifth graders have trouble with that. They didn't look at it once because I had a word spelled wrong in there. Like I had accidentally switched the letters, and one of my coworkers noticed one day, and I laughed, and I go, my kids, it was halfway through the year. My kids have never looked at it. I took it down.
I will
And
say,
then
I have had kids comment on my room, and this is what I think. I think it's because I don't have a ton up in my room. Basically, I've done my bulletin boards, and I have like the same bulletin border on every single one. The background is white on every single one. There are different math related things on all of them.
right.
But it's all the same color scheme.
Yes.
And I have, and other than those bulletin boards, I basically have nothing on the walls anywhere except for the pictures that I take of my class I talked about earlier. And I get kids tell me, I love the aesthetic of your room. And I think it's just because the walls aren't busy.
Right.
And I think it's because it's the same, just like comfort, like same type of colors, and they're not overwhelmed by lots of things.
Right. Well, the only things I have on my wall now are things for the students to do. Like I have a 20 questions wall, which every time we do a new unit, I put 20 review questions on the wall. And so they can sit at my back counter and they can fill out this paper and do the review questions. And then the only other thing I have on a bulletin board is it's called like application station. It goes with our curriculum, and it's like an activity they can do if they're done with stuff. So those are the only things I keep up there are activities that they're going to do, because other than that, they don't look at anything.
Yeah.
And
I
so it's very
think-
calm. And I've had adults tell me too, they're like, I like how calm it is in your room.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's my question to you to wrap up this topic. Okay. My question to you, and I'll try to answer afterwards, but what is, if you had to give advice to a first year teacher, or like if you had to say, here's something to watch out for, what would your big like overview thing be that you would say?
Okay. My biggest piece of advice to a first year teacher is to ask questions, and it's okay to get all of your ideas from a teacher that has been teaching already. Like,
yes.
you don't have to remake the wheel. Like, if another teacher has something successful that's working for them, use it while you're starting. And as you go, you can decide if you want to tweak that thing.
In fact,
like,
you
use someone
shouldn't
else's
be making
idea.
stuff up.
No, like that first year, you are there to get familiar with the curriculum and learn how to manage a classroom. Like, it is not your time to be making everything. You should not be making everything. Once you've been teaching for a few years, that's when you can start incorporating your own stuff into the curriculum, maybe making it more your style. But that first year, ask any question you have, because no question is too silly. And if you forget, ask again. Because my mentor teacher was never angry when I asked a question, but she also came to me once and told me, she's like, I don't know what you need answered, because I wasn't in that, like, she couldn't just like get in my head and know what I was struggling with.
Yeah.
So yes, ask questions and do not make everything your first year.
I think from like advice I would say, or like what, is just to set up boundaries for yourself.
Oh yes.
Like understand what time you're willing to give to your job. And I know that that's different for everyone. For me, I was working late nights every single night, and I wouldn't get home until 5 or 6 every single night for the first 2 months. And I got sick, and I realized I could leave right after school, and somehow the next day would happen.
right.
And so I started setting myself a boundary that said I would leave by 4 p.m. Or I set a boundary, and I don't take anything home. And I know for a lot of people that's not feasible. But set whatever your boundaries are. If you need to go into school after hours, maybe it's for a few hours on the weekend, or maybe you have one day that you stay late. That's what I do now. Like, figure out what your personal boundaries are and stick to them, and don't let yourself do more than that.
Another good boundary to set that I had to do this year is to not answer emails past a certain time.
Oh, and once I'm gone from school, I do not respond to a single
like
thing.
if you're not at work, don't answer emails, because once you answer a late night email, that sets the precedent that parents have you at all hours of the day.
Yep.
and
And
this
then
is
they'll
a
get
job-
mad when you don't.
Yes,
respond.
any other job, you don't have to respond to emails if you're out of work. So if you've left the building, don't answer an email.
Yeah. I think my last little part is boundaries, but also plan fun things.
Yes.
And like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be talk to your friend for an hour on the phone. It can be if your friends, and that's what works for me. Or if you live by friends, go out and do something fun. Hang out with somebody. Plan something to do that kind of keeps you going.
Right. Something outside of school where
yeah.
you're not talking about school.
Yep.
Well,
that's a wrap, I think.
Wow. We talked a lot more than I thought we would about that subject.
Me too. Well, thanks for joining us.
We had a lot of fun
talking.
talking to you.
Yes, make sure that you like or comment and
Subscribe,
right.
review.
Don't leave us hate comments.
But if you do, make them funny.
Yeah, if you do make them funny, we're fine with that.
But we'd like some good ones too. We have our Instagram. Go check that out for the history and other photos related to this episode. If you want to watch us talk instead of listen, go to our YouTube.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.